Hello. Good morning. Uh all right, so how's everyone doing? I am back with another model painting stream that I've been really excited for. This is Imotekh the Stormlord. Who's this whole other like Necron badass? Um but I'll just get right into painting him. Alright, so for this one, I use like a glossy silver primer. Um, which I'm not sure if that was the best idea, but I'll make it work. So, I'll talk about his lore after his. I'll talk about his lore as I'm painting him. But I have some special glow in the dark paint specifically for this guy. And it'll make him look really cool. But first things first, I have to actually paint him. So I have gold. I have like metallic gold. I have I have a dark green, and I have the glow in the dark green. And I am not using painting markers anymore. I'm not using painting markers for this guy or ever anymore because I was trying to use them to paint this Tau battlesuit that I have, and they didn't want to cooperate with me. So yeah, I'm just using my paintbrushes. So I guess before I talk about Imotekh, I should really talk about the Necrons in general, his race. Uh so basically, the Necrons way back when, before the 40 before the like way before the 41st millennium and before humanity was a thing. This was like millions of years ago. The Necrons were called the Necron tier. Because everyone who knows 40k like knows the Necrons as these as this race of like robot people that want to kill everything. But before that, they were actually flesh and blood. Called a race called the Necron tier. And they lived really crappy lives under this sun that gave them like very bad radiation poisoning that shortened their lives to like it literally gave them like 20-year lifespans. They did not live for very long. Um and they found this other race of immortals called the Old Ones, as the Eldar called them. And the Necron tier begged of the Old Ones to give to give the Necron tier like immortality because they lived on a planet with a radioactive sun. I mean, I know like our sun is radioactive, but let me just say that the Necron tier's sun was like it harmed them more than it helped them. So, except the old ones actually said no to the Necron tier. Like, which I don't really know why. I mean, it might have been because they couldn't, like, just give a whole race their own immortality, or because, like, they thought themselves as gods and the Necron tier weren't worth their time. I mean, effectively, the old ones were basically gods because they created. They actually ended up creating the Eldar and a race called the Krork, which is what the orcs used to be. And so the Necrons here, really, really angry that the old ones wouldn't help them out. And just to give you a good idea, the Necron tier's space travel was no different, was like very similar to ours, like to how ours is today. And they thought it was a good idea to go to war against basically gods with it. So needless to say, they lost. But that's when this other race of like space gods, called the Catan, found the Necron tier. And offered immortality. And they offered the Necron tier immortality, like, in place, like, if they helped the Catan destroy the old ones. And the Catan who made this offer to them was appropriately named the Deceiver. A name I can trust, right? So what the Deceiver did was straight up lie to the Necron tier and their king, called named Zarek, the Silent King. And basically the Deceiver took advantage of this dying, irradiated species and turned them and led them into these biotransference forges, which the Deceiver said would give them better bodies so they can live under, like, their sun that was just killing them. And there's this really depressing story. There's a book called Twice Dead King about this one Necron overlord named Imotekh. And there's like a flashback in that book about the Necron tier going to biotransference. And it describes how the Necrontyr were like carrying each other on like hospital beds or like dying before they get to the forges, and they're like piles of bodies like next to the biotransference furnaces. It is depressing. Like they were desperate to escape like their short lifespans under their sun. uh like they were literally dying before they could get to the forges. Like they could not, like a lot of them just couldn't make it. Except these forges turned the Necrontyr, these desperate, irradiated, like mortal people, like flesh and blood people, into soulless, like mindless automatons, basically, that we know as the Necrons. So they are literally like robots now. Their flesh and bone became what's called necrodermis, which is basically like a living metal. I mean, necrodermis is like, it literally means corpse skin. And which actually gives the Necrons, or certain Necrons I should say, like some pretty crazy invulnerable saves in the game. But it's to make them like way more effective as weapons. Because that's all they were to the Catan, just like living weapons. Well, quote, living. Because now they're soulless, unthinking machines. Because the Catan felt like they could do that to them. And after this came what was known as the War in Heaven. This is the war between the Catan and the Old Ones, with the Necrons fighting for the Catan. Who, by the way, I forgot to mention this, the Catan devoured the souls of the Necrontyr when they went into biotransference because they're pieces of shit. And they basically, with the help of the Necrons, the Catan basically like just destroyed the Old Ones. They either left the galaxy or they were just killed off. And this is when and I think it was around this time that the Silent King basically realized that his people would be nothing more than slaves to the Catan. So Zarek basically revolted against them back. He was like, "We fought your war, free us." The Catan said, "No, you belong to us now." So the Necron said, "Fine," and just obliterated the Catan. Quite literally. So the Catan are also called star gods, which is like, I can only imagine that this put Games Workshop's writers into a bit of a constraint, because it's like, how do you kill gods? They're gods. Well, the thing is, you can't. So what the Necrons did was break them into little pieces. So in the game, there are these Necron units called shards of, or no, they're called Catan shards of, like, the Deceiver, the Nightbringer, the Void Dragon. There's Transcendent Catans, because the Catans enslaved them. No, not the, because the Necrons end up enslaving the Catan right back. They're like, all right, fine. And this is when, and also, like, after they overthrew the old ones and then the Catan, is when the Silent King, actually no, oh actually yeah, first what the Silent King did, because around this time the Necrons had, like, expanded as a vast empire, like galaxy spanning empire of, I'll be right back. Where was I? They had expanded as, like, a galactic empire of just these robot people that used to be, like, living. They were flesh and blood. Except the Silent King felt, I mean, understandably, he felt like this guilt and this shame, like, at what he condemned his people to, like, as slaves of the Catan. So effectively what he did was he put all the Necrons to sleep in tomb worlds, which are, like, when you hear tomb world, it's literally like, oh my god, this whole world is just a bunch of, like, sarcophagi and dead people in it. Well, I say dead, but the Necrons are robots. I'm gonna give Imotekh some glowing eyes. And this was called the Great Sleep, where the Necrons were literally just they were just asleep in their tomb worlds for 60, well, I mean, in the 41st millennium, they are just now, like, waking up and just now starting to really be a problem to the Imperium. But the Silent King, feeling such a big, like, feeling of guilt and shame as for what he had done, like the contract he had signed with the Catan that condemned his people to become these unthinking, like, machines. He decided to go into the galactic void, like, between the galaxies, and just sit there in penance for 60 million years. 60 million years of just, like, basically silent contemplation. I mean, he's basically like 60 million years of just going, shit, I fucked up. And he's never going to get over that because he is a robot. But during this time, one of the Necron dynasties, called the Imotekh, their ruler was killed during the Great Sleep. You know, I could just paint this whole rib cage with the glow-in-the-dark paint. He was killed during the Great Sleep. I think it was like Eldar assassins or something. Or that might have been another Pharaon. Pharaon, because GW couldn't use Pharaoh, by the way. And one of the Nemesors, which is like a Grand General, was Imotekh. Except he was still asleep. He was still like in the Great Sleep. And I'll be right back again. Hey, Bucky. So basically, the nobles of the Imotekh dynasty were all basically like fighting each other for control of the dynasty. And one of them was like, I'm going to awaken Nemesor Imotekh because he's such a badass, and if I had him like as support, no one would challenge me, and I'd be Pharaon. Except he woke up Imotekh. He saw all of this like infighting in his dynasty and on his homeworld, and was like, absolutely not. And he mustered his own army and took the throne for himself. Just like, basically with a snap of his fingers. So now he's the Pharaon of the Imotekh dynasty. And the Imotekh dynasty, if I'm not mistaken, is the one that's been like the most of a problem to the Imperium and arguably the whole galaxy. They're like the most widespread dynasty, the most widespread Necron empire in the whole galaxy. And if I'm also not mistaken, no, wait, no, I'm not mistaken. This is why Imotekh is such a boss right here. So after 60 million years of just penance and silent contemplation, the Silent King eventually returned because he saw a Tyranid hive fleet, like coming towards the galaxy and wanting to eat everything, because that's what Tyranids do. And it was like, oh shit! And came back to save his people. And a lot of the Necron dynasties were pleased with his return. They were like, our leader's back! But Imotekh was like, no. Just no. You left us. You are a coward. and I will not join you. Cause you left us when we needed you. So, goodbye. Go cry yourself off for another 60 million years. So now Imotekh and the Silent King have this rivalry. Like, both of their dynasties will never get along, but they also won't fight each other because both of them are pretty big. I'm pretty sure they're the two biggest dynasties in the game. Yeah, they're the two biggest dynasties in the game, and they would just bleed each other dry trying to kill each other. Imotekh, they're both like, I mean, we could fight, but I don't think we should. Still not joining you, but I also won't fight you. You know what? I can, put streaks of the glow in the dark on the cape. So now Imotekh is literally he wants to return the galaxy to Necron rule. Because the Necrons, they ruled the galaxy before the Imperium came around, and they were the most powerful army. No one could challenge them, and anyone who did, well. and fast forwarding to we're already kind of in the 41st millennium, but a bit more about the Necrons now, in the 41st millennium. So the thing is, no one really knows about the Necrons. No one knows that they really exist, because they're still a pretty small race, or faction, I should say. There's still a lot of them, but there's but it's they're one of the smallest. And it's not all that surprising, especially considering that they are just now waking up from their tomb worlds, from the great sleep. So they're basically they've been asleep for a while, so they're just now coming up, but they're still not big enough of a threat. That being said, their armies are still enough of a threat to conquer an entire planet. And they have conquered entire planets and killed everything on the surface. It's pretty hardcore. And Imotekh, this guy, is literally order, unity, obedience. We taught the galaxy these things long ago, and we will do so again. And I'm having him pointed towards the light, so the glow-in-the-dark paint will charge. And Imotekh, okay, here's Imotekh's philosophy. This will tell you everything you need to know about him and the Necrons in general. He believes that the galaxy... He believes that Necrons should rule the galaxy. That's what all the major Necron characters think. And he believes that... He believes that the galaxy... he believes that Necrons will rule the galaxy when the galaxy has been, quote, wiped clean of inferior species. So to say that he's racist would be would be an understatement. But yeah, everyone is basically on the Necron's lawn. Like, the Necrons see everyone as on their lawn. Which is like, yeah, they're pretty evil. And Imotekh is the most, like, expansionist out of all of them. Like, out of all of them, he's the biggest imperialist, basically. And as for other Necrons, oh, you know what? I just remembered he's called Imotekh the Stormlord. And that's because he has something. Let me pull up his rules in the Codex really quick. Alright. Lord of the Storm, his ability. Once per battle, in your shooting phase, this model can call the storm. If it does, select one enemy model within why can't I read this? Within 48 inches of and visible to it. You can only select a character model that with a wounds characteristic of 9 or less if it is the closest enemy model to Imotekh. Roll 1d6 for each other enemy unit within... Wow. Roll 1d6 for each other enemy unit within 6 inches of that model. On a 4-up, meaning if you roll a 4 or higher, on a 4-up, that unit suffers d3 mortal wounds, then roll 1d6. On a 4-up, that model suffers 3 mortal wounds. Wow. So basically he can call down lightning strikes from the atmosphere, even if the planet has no lightning, which is why he's called the Stormlord. And let's see. Phase Shifter. This model has a 4-up invulnerable save. Just naturally. And let's see. My Will Be Done. In your command phase, you can select one friendly Imotekh core unit within 9 inches of this unit. Meaning Imotekh. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, add 1 to that attack's hit roll. Each unit can only be selected for this ability once per phase. Per phase? Let's see, what else is there? What other... What other bullshit overpowered abilities does Imotekh have for your Necron army? Relentless March. While a friendly Imotekh core unit is within 6 inches of this model, each time that model unit is selected to make a normal move or advance, until the end of that phase, add 1 inch to the move characteristics of models in that unit. Wow. So basically his soldiers are basically just faster around him. Let's see, Grand Strategist. If your army is battle forged, you receive 2 additional command points if you select this model as your warlord. Oh yeah. So I think it's command protocols. Oh no, it's not. No, but if you're battle forging a Necron army, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. Oh, here we go. The Royal Court. When mustering your army, if it contains the Silent King model, that model must be selected as your warlord. Because Zarek is like the ruler of all the Necrons. Oh, damn it. Why does my model keep... There we go. Otherwise, if your army contains a Pharaon model, that model must be selected as your warlord. And then it goes like... And then it goes Overlord, then Lord. And that's like the hierarchy of a Necron army. Necron Dynasty. And let's see. Dynastic code for... I assume code refers to like coding like a computer. Let's see. Imotekh. Relentless Advance. Each time a morale test is taken for a model with this unit, 18 inches. Wow! Powerful. When the protocol of the Conquering Tyrant becomes active for your army, if every unit in your army, including Dynastic Agent and Catan Shard units, has this code, you can select both of that command protocol's directives instead of just one. Oh, come on. A 40-second delay? I'm sorry, everyone. Alright. And let's see. There's some Necron units. Well, actually, more about Imotekh. So his dynasty, his empire is by far the largest. Which, if I can find a map. Actually, I probably don't need to. But the reason Imotekh is like is so scary is because he is one of the only Necrons that has like any kind of like tactical awareness or brain function, because the rest are like faceless, soulless drones, which is the whole point of the Necrons. And in effect, they're like basically less than battle droids from Star Wars. Oh, and speaking of which, there's a really funny Necron character named Nemesaur Zandrek. And remember, Nemesaur is like the grand general of an army of Necrons. And basically, uh, so Zandrak, every Necron and every Necron character like knows that they're machines, but Zandrak Zandrak thinks he's still like living, which is really sad when you think about it, because he tries to like eat and drink, but he can't. And he's like, why can't I taste anything? But it does, like, uh, what am I trying to say? He does have a, like a funny thing where, oh no, okay, no, I can only imagine that Nemesis Zandrik like talks in the same manner as like a battle droid from Star Wars. He's like goofy, but at the same time like still like the only one better than him at like leadership and strategy is probably Imotekh. And Zandrak is like easily Imotekh's most loyal general. And oh, and I can only imagine like Imotekh and Zarek, the Silent King. I can only imagine they both sound like freaking Darth Vader. Like if their voices, if I were to put a voice um on Imotekh, it would be Darth Vader's, because fighting his army in the lore like is always just terrifying, and Darth Vader fighting him is terrifying. So yeah, that's what I'd put Imotekh with. Like a Darth Vader, like a scary Darth Vader voice. A Vader voice. And the main flaw of Imotekh, I should say, because every leader like has this, is probably like martial hubris, like arrogance. And so whenever he wins a battle, and he usually wins his battles, he usually like he wants the enemy leader to live, like acknowledging his failure and his incompetence. There's this one there was this one encounter between him and High Marshal Helbrecht, who's like the top dog of the Black Templar Space Marine chapter, who I will definitely paint him on stream eventually. But he had this like fight with Helbrecht. Helbrecht basically called him like a relic from a dead and dying empire, a dead empire that has no right to exist. And Imotekh literally went, I find that amusing coming from one such as you. Because Helbrecht is like, he's a space marine, like, chapter master. Oh, that felt good. Uh, so basically, they both said they don't have a right to exist. And then Imotekh sliced off one of Helbrecht's arms. And that's another thing he does. He has a thing about taking enemy commanders like arms and legs as as a trophy for himself, but also to be like, you lost against me. Go live with that. and he expects that commander to be like afraid of him, understandably. But I imagine that would not work with a Space Marine chapter master. The Black Templars, High Marshal, no less. But literally every single faction in 40k has taken note of Imotech's expansion. Marnius Calgar, the Ultramarines chapter master, has noticed him expanding towards Ultramar. This one Eldar Craft World thinks that they're under a bigger threat from him than the Tyranids, which is like, wow, really. The Tau Empire have noticed Necrons getting too close to their borders, too close for comfort. And who else am I thinking of? I mean, if he's basically attracting attention from a lot of people he might not want attention from. But remember, he has the biggest army out of the other Necrons. And he's awoken 120 tomb worlds. And obviously the planets, the size of the tomb worlds vary from planet to planet, because not every planet is the same. But they're it's 120 worlds of just Necrons and just these horrifying warriors, basically. And Imotekh in particular has this one thing that also makes him scary. This isn't really a rule on the tabletop, but which is really, really sad, because that'd be a great rule to have on the tabletop. He has what are called Blood Swarm Nano Scarabs. And I believe, if you've seen any art of the Necrons, there's these little mechanical bugs with them. Those are called Canoptic Scarabs. But Blood Swarm Nano Scarabs, if you guys remember The Mummy, how these whole swarms of scarabs would basically slowly eat someone alive. What Blood Swarm Nano Scarabs do is they are the size of little ants. So Imotekh could summon thousands of them to burrow through Space Marine armor and eat away at their flesh for the slowest and most painful death possible. And the blood would summon what are called flayed ones. And flayed ones. Flayed ones are basically Necrons. Alright, so a little backstory here. So the flayed ones, when they were the Necron tier, there were these Catan that cursed a few of them to like always hunger for flesh and blood, which was like a curse. Like that's a pretty bad curse. Like you would only ever be satiated by flesh and blood. So when they became Necrons, which they can't be satiated by anything, they can't eat anything, it made the curse of the flayed ones like a lot worse. And let me just pull up their datasheet. Flayed ones. Dimensional translocation. Yeah, so every time Imotekh would kill something, or would kill someone, I should say, with his Bloodswarm nanoscarabs, it would summon these like packs of flayed ones from just this like dimensional rift. They would just like appear out of nowhere and start just ripping infantry apart, and they would wear their enemy's skin like as clothing. And oh my god, I'm looking at a picture of one now. There is a very obvious face like on its shoulder. See. Flesh Hunger. Each time a model in this unit makes a melee attack against an enemy non-vehicle unit, an unmodified hit roll of 6 scores 1 additional hit. So these ballistics, I'm reading that they, like, for ranged weapons, they don't have ranged weapons, but they hit on a 6. Probably because they don't use ranged weapons. And the weapon skills, which is like melee, hit on 3s. Because they have Flayer Claws. Oh, here's another one. Terrifying Foes. Aura. While an enemy unit is within 3 inches of this unit, subtract 2 from the leadership characteristic of models in that unit. Wow. So Imotekh has this like thing about using fear as a weapon, like terror. You know, he wants enemy commanders to live in fear of him, and he wants like the enemy armies to fear him too. And sometimes it comes back to bite him in the ass, and sometimes, if it's like not a Space Marine chapter master like Helbrecht, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they know how to fight him better. But here's the thing. Imotekh is such a good strategist that, like, if you know it's him leading a battle, you prepare for everything. And then he notices that, and goes, "Oh, they've prepared for everything." But you cannot prepare for Imotekh the Stormlord. Oh. one of his like favorite strategies to instill fear is to is quite literally to what he likes to do is cause like a fog with like a pitch black cloud, and like that's to like mask his whole army. Like all you see is this fog with these green lightning bolts, and he just like you walk into that fog, you just see these green eyes of all Necrons. And I cannot name anything scarier than that. Well, except for like a whole swarm of Tyranids coming after you. But I mean, Imotekh is a pretty terrifying opponent. He says like he's taken 2 robotic middle fingers and just pointed them both at the Silent King. He is easily, like, out of all the Necrons in particular, he is easily the biggest like Necron threat to the Imperium. And honestly, the only reason the Necrons don't rule the galaxy is because of their small numbers. Even Imotekh. But if every single Tomb World woke up, and if every single one was led by this guy, it'd be game over for everyone else. So I think it goes without saying that I am done painting him. I got done painting him like half an hour ago. Let's see, could I do anything else? I've put glow in the dark paint everywhere I want to. And I'm just gonna leave him there for the paint to charge. And I think I'm done. I think I'm done painting him. I think I've talked about Imotekh enough. Oh, you know what? Warlord trait. What's his warlord trait? Let's see. Because every faction has units that can be your warlord. So let's see if I can find Imotekh's. Warlord traits. Alright, here we go. Imotekh the Stormlord, hyperlogical strategist. So where is it? Oh, here it is. While this warlord is on the battlefield, each time you spend a command point to use a stratagem, you can roll 1d6. On a 5 up, that command point is refunded. Oh. Alright, that's a bit overpowered. Because you use command points for certain stratagems, which are basically these ridiculous, like, abilities for your army. Stratagems, you can use command points to re-roll, like, on rolls that you're not satisfied with. And that is just stupid. That he can just give one back if you roll a 5 or a 6. And I think that's all his rules. That's all his rules. That's all about him. I'm done painting him. There wasn't a lot that went into it, but I think I'm done painting him. Gonna leave him here to like under the light, so the glow in the dark paint will charge. And I think that's all I got right now. This was a fun one. I was really excited to paint this model in particular, because Imotekh is really cool. And yeah, I'm done. So, everyone, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to follow me on Twitter too. And also be sure... sorry, it's early. And also be sure to follow me on Twitter and join my Discord. Sorry. Join my Discord for content updates and my scheduling. Once this glow in the dark paint charges up, I'll be posting a picture of Imotekh, both like without the glowing paint and while he's glowing in the dark. And I just think that'll be so cool. So I think that's about it. Oh, don't forget, check out my podcast with my dad on Spotify, Dad and Boy. We're going to start up a new cool little mini series pretty soon. That'll be really fun. And I think that's all I got right now. And don't forget, I am going on hiatus on December 17th. So literally like a month from tomorrow. But that's all I got right now. So thank you guys so much again for watching, and I will see you guys later. So goodbye.